So this book changed the course of my life. I read it in the end of college, and it truly is what started my journey in self-help and self-development. So it is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It is extremely world-renowned, so I'd be surprised if you haven't heard of it, but if you haven't, I'm really excited to kind of share from you the profound impact that this book has had on my life. So toward the end of college, I was already engaged. I was really nervous about graduating college because in my mind, I thought when you leave, life ends. I really didn't realize that, God, the world is just so limitless. There's so much opportunity, and I wasn't really thinking that far ahead. I was just thinking, I love learning. I'm an amazing student. I'm great at it. I enjoy school. I really did. I was never in a rush to graduate. It was the complete opposite. But there were some issues that I uncovered through reading this that I was facing, and I would have never dealt with them if I hadn't. So this book talks about the principle of going from dependence to independence to interdependence. Dependence being really much a very parent to child state where you are fully dependent on another person. Just take it for what it's worth with the name. Now, independence, that's again, same thing. It's where you find yourself, you move out, you know what you need, you're self-sufficient in really most ways. Then it's the high state of being, which is interdependence. So interdependence really comes down to that synergy, being able to work with someone or live with someone or married to someone, that relationship, whether that's with a spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, or whether that's with a coworker, just really that synergy and being able to connect and collaborate with others. So again, toward the end of college, I was already engaged, so I was going from dependent, really being reliant on my family heavily, to interdependence. I had never really gotten a chance to find out, who am I, who's Sania, what does Sania want? You know, I'd gotten into a relationship pretty early on in high school, and high school is really when you're trying to figure yourself out. You really, that's the primary purpose of your teenage years, is you're just really confused and lost and really trying to know, who am I, and early adulthood as well too. And I'd never really asked myself those questions until I picked this book up. And it talks about the fallacy of going from dependence directly to interdependence, and that's exactly where I was headed. So I vowed to figure out who I am. So I started reading self-help, self-development. It went from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People to How to Win Friends and Influence People. I read The Alchemist. All these books were really starting to evolve my mind, evolve the way that I thought. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to find myself. I really spent the last semester of college answering the question, who am I? And the reason that this was so life-changing for me was because I was in a relationship at the time where I wasn't really allowed to be independent. It was very much decided for me what I would do, who I would be talking to, who I was friends with, where I would go, what I would do with my life. It was decided and controlled, and it was not healthy. And in doing this, when I started sticking up for myself, my ex was extremely threatened in that. And of course, you know, it takes two to create any issues, but this is just, I guess, one piece of it. And eventually, after being in a almost 7-year relationship and engaged, he decided that the way to deal with how threatened he felt and unhappy he felt was to cheat on me. And so that was definitely the best thing that could have ever happened in my life. I remember standing at the top floor of my apartment complex building and throwing the engagement ring off of the roof and just watching it fall. And it was so liberating because that engagement ring had been like a noose around my neck. And finally, I had the room to discover who I was. So my story didn't quite end there, you know. He managed to convince me that he hadn't been cheating, the girl had been making it up, and we went back and forth for a little bit to discover the truth. And eventually we did learn that, you know what, he had been cheating, maybe not just that one time, maybe the entire time, I'm not sure still, but again, I was finally free, I was finally liberated, and I could walk away without any doubt, any regret, you know. And that was the most exciting time of my life, because I then opened a business with my family, and that one kind of took off. And then I met my husband, who is the most amazing man I could have ever found. And you know, in that time, again, really, I had given myself room to find myself and get a little bit more to know myself. And so I had more to offer my husband when we met, and right off the bat, it was the most fun experience. Just being with him was a joy and adventure, and everything about being with him was just so much fun. It was like being in a movie. And of course, I will be sure to talk about relationships a lot more in coming videos, but finally I was at that interdependent stage. You know, I was working with my family to create businesses. Eventually I met my husband, and we got engaged 6 months afterwards, and it was pretty fast, but I knew it was the right one. And things started to change, and from one businesses we went to two, then eventually ended up managing about 4 or 5. Still something that, you know, we're growing together. Some things work, some things don't work, but this is, again, my first YouTube video. I am really excited to talk about the principles of not just self-development but business, to talk about what it takes to be the most passionate, happy, fulfilled version of you, to be the most passionate and fulfilled you can be in a relationship. And I think one thing that's important to note is this book was the start of my journey. This video is the start of my YouTube journey. You know, I got started on Instagram not too long ago. You know, I'm very early on in my stage and my journey, and I'm so excited to share these things that I find from the thought leaders of the world, and to share my stories, my experiences. But I also want to hear from you. I want to connect with you. I want to learn from you. I want to collaborate with you. So please, this is my first video. Let me know what you think, what your thoughts are. Hit me up, message me, let me know where you are at this stage. Are you dependent, independent, or interdependent? And it would mean the world if you also subscribe to the channel. So thank you again for watching this very first video, and let me know your thoughts below.